Welcome back, everybody, to Let's Play Wario Land 4 for the Game Boy Advance. Last time we cleared the first two levels of the Emerald Passage, and today we're taking on the last two, starting with Mystic Lake. And this game most certainly has an interesting approach to underwater swimming controls, but before I cover any of that, let me just go ahead and state that the way this puzzle is set up is kind of awkward. And that's primarily because of the fact that the only way you can break this open is with that lone spear mask sitting over here. Meaning, if you accidentally drop him into the water, then tough luck, you're not getting in here. But luckily for us, he happens to be right by the entrance, so you can always just restart the level if you want to. Granted, you would end up losing everything, but we're going to try avoiding that whenever possible. So this here was a puzzle I was stumped on for the longest time as a kid. But ideally speaking, you want to charge up your throw and throw the football vertically and have it hit the ceiling. And I never thought you could do that, mostly because I don't think there was ever an instance in the game where the game would ever do something like that for a puzzle. And I don't know, it just seemed kind of out of left field, I suppose. And yeah, I always assumed it was something that was, you know, out of my ability to do. But if you remember what I was talking about earlier, all of the abilities you have are present in Wario at all times, meaning that unless you have a transformation ability on hand, then you can basically do anything within Wario's arsenal as desired. Yeah, you gotta really play around with it. It kind of reminds me of Klonoa in that sense, actually, where you have, you know, a base tool set, but the game doesn't really run out of instances where you feel limited by your basic moveset. Anywho, the swimming controls are very different in Wario Land 4, and that's primarily because, you know, say you're playing a Mario game, for example, and the way you swim in that is that you press the A button to gain distance or ascend or whatever. In this game, the directional pad gives you free movement depending on which direction you press. However, if you press the B button, you actually speed up depending on which direction you're facing. And on top of that, you can press the A button to ascend. And I think that's pretty cool, because I really wish more games would function like this, because a lot of people typically don't like water levels, and that is because they're slow. But no, Wario is pretty freaking mobile for an underwater swimmer, despite being a tubby, you know, lord of grease, you know? I'm sorry, Wario, I will never disgrace your presence again. But, yeah, the swimming controls are kind of weird at first, but once you get used to them, they're actually pretty freaking fantastic, and I wish other games of this caliber would, you know, approach, you know, underwater swimming controls like this again. Meaning that, yes, the water levels in Wario Land 4 are actually pretty enjoyable, despite this being the only real primary one, you know? So, another thing to note is that these enemies all have specific weak points. I didn't know you could kill them for the longest time, because if Mario had taught me anything, it's that unless you have a projectile on hand, there was no way in hell you were going to do any realistic damage to underwater sea creatures. But in this game, you actually have to strike them from their undersides, and you can't simply just swim into them either. You actually have to press the B button to speed up into those weak points, because not only does it act as a method of giving yourself extra speed underwater, you can actually use this to smash certain things like this ceiling I just broke earlier. So that is something to keep into consideration. So this next room here is something I'd like to consider one of the creepiest parts of Wario Land 4 for certain. Certain. That needs to be a word. Somebody please grab a dictionary and, apply that bit of knowledge into it. Please and thank you are my magic words. But yeah, I've already stated before that this game doesn't really shy away from the strange and insane elements. This right here certainly isn't an exception. On top of Spoiled Rotten being as freaky as he was, and I'm getting super reckless. What is wrong with me today? I'm actually going to go back and get those hearts now that I think about it, because it's not like the enemies respawn. Gimme, 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 gimme. Thank you. Man, can you imagine if this was super hard mode, where I start off with one heart, and I'm getting reckless now, and this would kill me in an instant? Oh boy, all of the possibilities to consider. Despite the changes in difficulty, obviously speaking, the CDs, apart from, the primary chests of treasure you run across through the duration of the level, as far as I know, no, I can actually confirm this. What am I saying? They don't actually change the locations of any of the CD-based treasure chests, dependent on difficulty. So, yeah, right now you're seeing the locations of the treasure chests in hard mode, but anything you see for the compact disc or what have you, that's going to be final no matter what difficulty you play the game in, and that's just something I thought I'd bring up for good measure. The camera here isn't too great, though, I will admit, and that's primarily because when you're at a certain level, Wario is a little too close to the screen, and it can provide to be kind of cumbersome whenever you're trying to spot wherever these things may be as you're rising and ascending and all of that jazz. One thing I really don't like about the fish, though, is that, if you don't hit their weak point and you happen to hit them from behind instead, what this ends up doing is that it actually ends up speeding them up, but you're still stuck in their hurt box, and it creates this weird collision nonsense where you can accidentally say swim yourself into a wall and then get trapped into his offensive hurt box, and it's a little bit annoying, I won't lie. So that's just something I thought I'd bring mention to, because why not? And yeah, that treasure chest was pretty evident if you couldn't already tell by the way that camera was positioned. Definitely got to pay real close attention to the camera if you want to find certain sweet points here and there. Because that's honestly the only realistic method I can think of for, finding what you can and can't break. Because, as I've stated previously, a lot of these secrets weren't things I found within my first few playthroughs. This is a game that definitely demands that you play through it multiple times, because they will put important things such as those artifacts and those hidden locations, dependent on what difficulty you're playing the game in. Alright, so this next section here is a bit of a time puzzle. Basically, you have the option of either swimming through that and avoiding the bubbles, or the bubble will take you up here, and you basically end up wasting your time having to deal with these dudes on the way over to your goal / destination. However, there is one specific bubble path we do want to take, and that one will lead us to a treasure chest, so I'll be sure to do that whenever the time arises, or I stop getting reckless. It's funny how that works. Like, it's not as prevalent as, say, Wario Lands 2 and 3, but there's still moments like that where they can intentionally punish the player by, you know, literally wasting their time and slower alternate paths. And it's funny how that works. Like, yeah, like you do take damage, but it's not like everything hurts you, you know? It's not like Mario where you get scraped on the knee by a Goomba and, oh, suddenly you take damage. Like, some enemies don't do anything to you at all, so they have to think of ways to, you know, work around this. And it's like, well, it's not like Wario takes damage from everything. How else can we possibly punish the player? And that mind of logic is still pretty prevalent in Wario Land 4, despite however different it may be from its predecessors. Oh, wow. Well, I guess it just goes to show that as long as you provide me with plenty of space, the fish become way less cumbersome than they normally would be. Funny how that works. I'm pretty sure you can actually just jump onto that cliff without needing the frog switch if it's something within your reach or abilities. But I'm just bad, so I'm gonna stop. So just gonna hit this right here. This one is pretty interesting, I believe. This one's also kind of a fun one because it's kind of like a race against time somewhat. Gotta hit this before he hits the bottom of that well. Sorry, Professor, but I guess you're stuck there for all eternity. So, dependent on what difficulty you play the game in, you have these things out and about, providing all sorts of trouble for Wario as he goes to grab the Keezer way off over in the distance over here. And, yeah, sometimes not only can enemy placement change within the harder difficulties, you have subtle obstacles like these that can either be added or subtracted dependent on what difficulty you play the game on. It's pretty awesome how that works. So, anywho, gonna hit the frog switch here, and sometimes the frog switch can actually have different effects on the level terrain entirely. Like, that, for example, actually shut down the water currents, and that means we can actually come up here and grab Keezer. And on top of that, it does turn on certain frog blocks, so you can either use them to access certain areas, or it'll intentionally block off areas. So even though you'll have to retrace your steps, you know, in just about every level you play once you hit the frog switch, the path back might not always necessarily be the same, and they actually create new terrain around this said fact, and that's pretty awesome. It definitely makes each escape sequence that much more memorable because you're having to deal with completely different obstacles all around. And there's this one level we'll be playing later in the future that actually completely changes the atmosphere of the level, and you have to play around that and work with completely different puzzles, and it's... God damn it, dude. I love this game's level of polish. It's so awesome. So freaking awesome. That's not awesome, though. Once again, obstacles created just to waste my time. Ah! Oh god. It's hard to see where those things come out as well. I'm actually trying to scour the area to see if there's anything I'm realistically missing here. But you know what? Screw it. Let's stop wasting time. And that's how you break that. And in this room lies another compact disc for yours truly. So there you have it. Mystic Lake all 100%ed and completed. See, like, I don't see why people complain about the length of this game, because, yeah, you only have 18 levels to deal with, but, like, when you're going through and, like, excavating these levels in their entirety, like the game expects you to do, like, you saw right there, it took me 15 minutes to clear the level. That's not, you know, your typical level length for, say, a Mario game or even a Donkey Kong game, for instance, you know? Like, the length is still there, just not in the level quantity, you know? So, anywho, this here is the last level of the Emerald Passage, and this level is kind of interesting in the sense that, like, it is kind of a water level, except not really. This level is enshrouded by lots of water, yes, but it's actually preferable that you stay out of it, and that is primarily because of these gator-like enemies. Except they actually are gators, so what the hell am I saying? Basically, you jump past their line of sight, and they'll come and strike you. And it is possible to kill them by striking their sides upon doing so. The problem with that is that, like, um, yeah, you can't die from going to the bottom of the water here, but coins certainly can disappear permanently. And on top of that, these guys only spawn tiny coins, and the tiny coins are only worth 10 coins. So, no, I don't really think it's worth it to, like, actually go out of your way and kill all of the gators like I've been doing for most of the playthrough, generally speaking, killing all of the enemies. I may be a monster, but I'm not that crazy. Let's come under here. And we got ourselves a nifty little heart chest. On top of that, that comes with a golden coin as well. So even if you're not in it for the health, the 500 coins by itself are totally worth it, I'd say. And oh god, I love this music. Man, you want to talk about relaxing? And I love how this song plays in the credits too. It's the perfect kind of song I love listening to when I want to go back and reminisce on stuff that has happened in my past, good things, positive things, all of that stuff. This soundtrack not only nails the variety and level design, but the variety and just the kind of tracks you can expect out of a game of this caliber is amazing. Like, the versatility in this game that's present is bar none. Let me just state that again. I love the atmospheric variety and soundtrack, the variety that this game provides. It never feels like I ever get bored because I'm doing the same thing over and over again, except in a different level. Hey Mario, maybe you should probably take notes from Wario and maybe design better crafted levels. Levels with more personality. Jeez. That's why I bring that point up, because, like, that's the main reason why I can't stay in the new Super Mario Brothers games. Like, I'm not against the notion of 2D Mario, but, like, say, I can at least praise a Mega Man game, for instance, because, like, yeah, mechanically, they're all the same, but you always have a different variety of levels to come to and expect with each different entry you play. So, instead of the game benefiting from one being mechanically better than the others, you have to account for level design, right? And that's why I love games like, you know, Mega Man 7 and 4, for example, because they have different types of level design that appeal to me more as a player. And the same could be said for Wario Land 4. But then you play Mario, the new Super Mario Brothers game specifically, and it's the same level themes, the same type of levels you'll be playing, because Mario platformers are pretty basic. There's not a whole lot to work with besides the power-ups you get. But even then, they're not really intertwined with the gameplay to where it's expected to use them for each level. So you have to work with Mario's basic moveset. which is not nearly as versatile as Wario's, and it's just like, I'm not saying it can't be done, because, you know, Mario 3 and Mario World has proven that you can definitely create, you know, versatile themed levels, but it's like, I don't like it when a game plays it too safe and makes the game that, you know, they're basing their, you know, base tool set around way too basic. And when a game ends up being too basic, I think it's boring, honestly. That's why I'm not a big fan of, like, most of the Kirby games outside of, like, the 3DS ones, because they add all of these different elements and puzzles that differentiate themselves from one and another, depending on what level you're in, instead of being a basic, oh, well, let's just throw a bunch of enemies here and there and call it a level, and it's really flat and boring, like Kirby Dream Land 3 is. I'm just saying, like, no matter how basic your tool set is, or how, like, set in stone your arsenal is for the character of the game you're playing, you can do just about anything with the level design in mind. And I just wish more video games these days would take creative liberties around that. We need more games like Wario. We need more games like Donkey Kong. We need more games like Klonoa. And I wish Nintendo would go back to their roots and stop playing it so safe with their platformers these days. Like, I didn't even bother buying New Super Mario Bros. On the Wii U because I was like, I don't care. This is the same game I've been playing 3 times in a fucking row. What is there to expect besides new power-ups that the game isn't really built around using, you know? But yeah, this level is really short. The real challenge kind of comes from a lot of the excavating the game expects you to do during the escape sequence, because, oh boy, there are a lot of missable things on the escape sequence here. But first, I'm going to take this dude right here and have him shoot me with an arrow. I guess this is definitely one of those things where, like, no! Fuck! Where it's not quite so obvious, where you can tell, oh, well, this guy can damage me with a sharp, pointy object, and, oh, well, I guess he can't. Because realistically speaking, if you get hit by an arrow, that should be it. That should definitely be something that you don't want to be dealing with either way, you know. Man, I'm on a timer and I'm still dealing with this. Ugh. What am I doing? What is wrong with me? Oh, of course they put a spear mask at the end of that. See, look at this fun puzzle. Taking advantage of the fact that you can use this to cross wider gaps, dependent on how much speed you have with this dash. This is a perfect example of utilizing your base abilities in different creative ways outside of breaking blocks. Again, we need more shit like this. Oh wow, I'm surprised I didn't get hurt. So I'm gonna have to take it slow here, and that's primarily because there is this thing right here, and I want to see if I can do it within the time allotted. I'm probably gonna have to anyway, because I'm pretty sure this has a required treasure chest. I'm burning way too much time here. I need to definitely skedaddle. The music's tensing up. Okay. So this place has an easily missable treasure chest, and that's because of the boneheaded decision they decided to do by placing one right here, despite the fact that there is most clearly a secret right there. So, yeah, that's not annoying at all. Oh, Jesus. No! Fuck! Man, I am about to screw up, am I? Fudge. Okay, so normally there would be a treasure chest there in super hard mode, but luckily for us, I don't have to worry about that. So now comes the question of whether I can get to this within all of my gold intact. Unfortunately not. Fuck me. But that is all of the secrets that this level has to offer. Except, I actually completely skipped one. Or wait, oh, no, 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 no. Nope, I still got the best core. I still got it. Ah! God bless my life meter. Oh, yeah. Shit, I forgot to cover one of the bonus areas because I was so busy talking about a whole lot of nothing that I just, happened to skip idly by it. So, you know what? I'll show it off before the video ends, because why not? The completionist in me will not leave me alone unless I do so. Yeah, it's this pipe right here that I completely neglected. So, with this puzzle, basically what you want to do is that you want to do this, and, again, creative use of your innate abilities. But yeah, that's that. But anywho, that's going to be it for this video. Stay tuned for the next one where I take on Cractus. So see you guys then.